Okay, in this particular drawing I've got normal orthographic views. I have my front view and I have a right side view. And at this point I've come to the conclusion that I really need to draw a section view so that I can show how deep this particular recessed area is. So I can't dimension to hidden lines, so that's my indicator to say, okay, now you need a section line. So the first part to creating a section line is to create the cutting plane line. I like to use polylines to do that, and I'm also going to keep my cutting plane line and my crosshatch or section lines in a separate layer. So I'm going to use the HAT layer for hatch, and I'm going to start the polyline command. The first thing I'm going to do is draw the cutting plane line in my front view. So I'm going to start the polyline command, and I'm going to go a little bit above and a little bit to the left of the center of where I want the cutting line to go. So I'm going to left click to start the polyline, and notice that the current line width at the command line says is 0. So a 0 line width is just a normal line, and for cutting lines these lines actually need to be thick. So I'm going to use the width option by typing the letter W and pressing the enter key, and I'm going to change the starting width to 0.03, and I also want the ending width to be 0.03. And notice how the 0.03 is in the angular brackets in the command line. If I just press the enter key, 0.03 is accepted as the default. So now I'm drawing a line that is 0.03 inches thick. So that's a nice thick heavy line. So I'm going to track to the right till I come up to the center of my part where I want the cutting line to pass through. I go down, and I could do some precision things to get this length down below exactly the same as that above, but I'm really not too concerned with it. So I just want to kind of approximate it, and then I'm going to move over to the left, and I am going to track off the end point of this upper line so that I can make the lower line the exact same length. So I'm going to press the enter key to stop the line command, and there is my cutting line. Okay, now a cutting line needs to have arrows that represent the line of sight for the section view. So I'm going to have to put some arrows at the end of this cutting line. So to create those arrow heads, your textbook, I think in chapter 7, indicates that you could use a leader, and that's certainly true. You can use a leader and chop it up, but I think if you'll try this polyline method, you'll find that it works pretty well too. So I'm going to use the polyline tool once again. So for the starting point, it's going to be at the end point of this line, and I want to create an arrow that points to the left. So this right side of the starting point of this arrow is going to be kind of thick, so I'm going to taper it down to nothing, to 0. So I'm going to use the width option again, and for the starting width I'm going to make that 0.125, 1/8 of an inch, and for the ending width I'm going to taper that all the way down to 0, and so that'll make a nice sharp point. So the ending width will be 0, and for the length of this line I'm going to make it 5/16, which is 0.3125, and I'm going to press the enter key. So now I've got a nice arrow that indicates the line of sight, and I need the arrow down below as well. So I'm going to copy that. I use the copy command. I select my arrow key. I right click because that's the only thing that I want to copy, and now AutoCAD is asking me to select the base point. So I could use this particular end point as my base point and place it at this end point down below, and now I've got a nice cutting line. So the one thing that I need to do to finish up my cutting line is change it to the proper line type. Cutting line should be a phantom line type. So I'm going to change the line type of this cutting line to the phantom. Right now it's continuous line, like an object line. So I'm going to select my cutting line, and over here on my properties panel on my home ribbon I'm going to use the line type button, and I'm going to scroll down till I see Phantom 2. Now if you don't see Phantom 2 in your list, you can pick this other, and you can actually load additional line types into your drawing. So you may not see all those, but you can actually load those, and you will find Phantom 2 loaded in there. So now I've got to select this line and actually tell it that I want that to be a Phantom 2. Okay, so I'm going to clear my selection, and you can see kind of the phantom line or the cutting line is overtaking this center line. So phantom lines take precedence over center lines, so I'm going to take those two center lines out just to kind of clean up the view a little bit. So that's my cutting line, and now the next thing I might want to do is go ahead and convert this right side view into my full section view. So I'm going to change these hidden lines into object lines. And now I'm going to use my hatch tool, and I'm going to pick where the material is actually at. I put the hatch where this cutting line actually crosses material, so you can see from here to here is from there to there, and then from here to there is down below. These are both holes, so there's no material being cut in this area. So the crosshatch is only applied, or section line I should say, is only applied in the areas where material is being cut by the cutting line. Now there's just a little bit more left to do to finish this up as far as the section views goes. Every section view really should be labeled, so I'm going to use the single line text, and I'm going to select over here in front of my arrow. I don't want the text rotated, so I'm going to press enter to accept the rotation angle of 0, and I'm going to put a capital A, and I'll press the enter key a couple of times to finish up that command. Now this A is 1/8 of an inch, and notice I didn't have the option to change it here, but I can always change it in the properties palette. So I'm going to select my A, and in the properties palette I'm going to change the text height to be 0.1875, 3/16 of an inch. Nice big text. And this A should be labeled at this arrow, and it should also be labeled at the other arrow down below. So I'm going to use the copy, just like we did for the arrowheads, and copy the text down below. Now I'm going to also copy this text to label this view. So I'm going to copy it straight over, and I'm going to edit this to read section, all caps, section A-A. And then you might center that up a little bit. But that's how we want to label our views. Now of course I would go ahead and place all my dimensions to finish this view up, but hopefully this video will give you a good understanding and sound skills to create your cutting plane lines and add section lines in the appropriate places. As always, if you have any questions, give me a call or send me an email. Thanks.